Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I am Mazra Hassan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Passengers from 6 Middle Eastern countries will not be allowed to disembark in Sri Lanka for a period of 2 weeks. Cabinet spokesperson's reaction on attire of Chinese nationals at the dredging site of the Tissa River.
ඒ සාමාන්‍ය කට්ලයක් overall kit එකක් කියන එක දැන් පෙලක් කරලා බඳ කරලා තියෙන ගරාජස් වලත් ඔය overall kits තියෙනවා වගේ.
Will Basil Rajapaksa enter parliament and subsequently be vested with a ministerial portfolio?
තුමාට ලැබෙන අමාත්‍ය ධූරය මං හිතන්නේ සියල්ලට මැදිහත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් අමාත්‍ය ධූරයක් විය යුතුයි.
බැසිල් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉන්නවද? බැසිල් ගෙදර ඉන්නවද? බැසිල් ලොස් ඇන්ජලිස් වල ඉන්නවද? නේද? ඒ කිසිවක් අපිට අදාළ නැහැ. මොකද මේ අර්බුදේ නිමවුම් කරුවන් සහ මේ අර්බුදය තීව්‍ර කරන්නන් ඔවුන් නිසා.
Restrictions imposed to preserve foreign reserves extended for a further 6 months. Fresh proposals introduced to attract dollars to the country.
On to your lead story now. The Civil Aviation Authority announced that it has decided to suspend the entry of passengers from 6 countries in the Middle East for 2 weeks.
The travel restriction will come into effect starting from midnight on the 1st of July and will continue till midnight on the 13th of July. Accordingly, passengers from Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain and Kuwait will not be allowed to enter the country. The Civil Aviation Authority stated that the travel restrictions were imposed on instructions received from the National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 outbreak.
Why did we halt these entries? This restriction has raised serious concerns in this country, especially to the media of this country. These concerns are made because of the expatriates. As of yesterday, more than 100 travellers were tested positive. Now, what does this mean? Are the PCR tests conducted in those developed countries a farce? Or how can a negative PCR report taken 3 to 4 hours before become positive when it's done here? We will take necessary action to prevent these lapses. And not only this, we have already taken many other steps to avoid such circumstances.
These are the people who earn the highest foreign revenue to our nation. These are the very people who voted at the November 2019 elections. They robbed those people by assigning quarantine centres with exorbitant prices. What is the government's plan with regards to repatriating expatriates? They are also unable to return to the island. If they truly wanted to curtail COVID-19, Ukrainian tourists would not have been brought here.
1,320 COVID-19 patients have been identified from the country today, increasing the total caseload in Sri Lanka to 256,828. 2,222 people who recovered from the virus were discharged today. Total recoveries in Sri Lanka currently stands at 3,471. According to the Ministry of Health, 2,985 deaths have been reported from the island.
A loan obtained to import COVID-19 vaccines. Cabinet approval was granted to obtain a $150 million loan from the World Bank for the responsive COVID-19 vaccine project for recovery. According to the decision taken by the cabinet, $84 million will be secured through the Asia Pacific Vaccine Access Facility, and the remaining $66 million will be obtained under regular local provisions of the Public Capital Fund of the Asian Bank. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, in his capacity as the Finance Minister of the country, has put forward this cabinet paper.
What does the future of the vaccination drive look like?
The State Pharmaceutical Corporation said that another 4.25 million vaccines would arrive in the country within the next month. 2 million vials of the Sinopharm vaccine will arrive in the country along with that stock of vaccines. While 200,000 vials of the Pfizer vaccine will arrive in the country in batches, another 50,000 doses of the Russian Sputnik vaccine will be imported to the country on the 8th of July.
What is happening to the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine?
We have taken a unanimous decision to administer the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccines as the second dose for people who got the first Covishield jab. The Director General of Public Health Services will issue a clear set of guidelines to the relevant institutions in this regard.
Conditions of the agreement to manufacture the Chinese Sinovac vaccine in the country discussed furthermore.
It is a privately owned Chinese company that will send the vaccines to Sri Lanka. We have to purchase that. We have to purchase the vaccines through a private entity here in Sri Lanka. There are several conditions in that agreement. Number one, this private entity has to be linked to the government. Number two, an advance for 3 billion vaccine vials have to be paid up front. Number 3, letters of credit must be open for the remaining 10 million. And finally, there is a condition that you cannot publicize the price of this vaccine. Sri Lanka mostly receives Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines. We have seen reports published saying that data related to the money that is being sent to get down the vaccines are not being released. We would like to request the Ministry of Health and the State Pharmaceutical Cooperation not to violate these procurement measures and carry out the plan to import vaccines in a transparent manner.
It
is no such thing to hide. Maybe the price is subject to change depending on the different agreements and the connections they have with different countries. I do not think that we have to hide anything. The government is carrying out these affairs with full transparency.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
What is the state of Sri Lanka's economy at present? Up next is an in-depth analysis on the matter.
Sri Lanka's foreign reserves, including gold reserves, has depleted to $4 billion at present. Debt obligations worth $1 billion obtained from the international market will mature over the next few days. According to the central bank, total debt repayments of $2.4 billion will have to be settled this year. However, the government has now decided against obtaining debt from the international market. Hence, the government has resorted to attracting investments and entering into swap agreements with other nations. Based on a special release issued by the governor of the central bank yesterday, Sri Lanka possesses $4 billion worth of foreign reserves, notwithstanding the $1.5 billion swap agreement struck with China. Plans have also been drawn up to obtain $400 million and $1 billion from 2 swap agreements with India and a further $200 million swap agreement with Bangladesh. The governor has also announced the receipt of $800 million from the IMF's special drawing rights disbursed to member states. The central bank also expects to raise a further $700 million this year through export proceeds and worker remittances. The announcement by the governor of the central bank revealed steps have been taken to restrict the use of foreign exchange for non-essential imports by the Sri Lankan banking system in consultation with the central bank. However, what is the true state of the market? Based on the exchange rates issued by the central bank today, the Sri Lanka rupee stands at 202 rupees and 89 cents against the US dollar. But those in the local market say that since there is a shortage of dollars for this amount, the US dollar is currently trading between 220 and 230 rupees. Against such a backdrop, State Minister Ajtivad Cabral continues to bear the following stance.
The issue with regard to foreign exchange has occurred since most investors believe the rupee will depreciate further. Hence, they continue to hold on to their foreign exchange. Although the opposition foresaw doom and gloom to the tune of our rupee depreciating further, our factories closing down and 600,000 being unemployed, none of it happened. I want to reiterate to all exporters and importers, we will bring forth stability. The central bank has directed its attention towards the matter. Based on the decisions made by the central bank over the past few days, we saw how the rupee strengthened. I believe the rupee should ideally be set around 185 rupees against the dollar. We intend for it to strengthen to that point given the macroeconomic factors at present.
If there is no acute shortage of US dollars in the country, Why did the cabinet announce plans yesterday to attract dollar investments into the country? As per cabinet decisions, licensed commercial banks, national savings banks and non-financial companies registered under the Companies Act No. 7 of 2007 have been permitted to purchase international sovereign bonds issued by Sri Lanka. As a further solution to the crisis, the cabinet had approved the listing of foreign currency denominated shares listed on the Colombo Stock Exchange to enable local companies to raise foreign exchange. The cabinet also decided to pay higher interest rates on special deposit accounts and to extend out-of-country remittance regulations to encourage the repatriation of foreign currency.
Ideally, a country should possess foreign reserves sufficient for 3 months. If it depletes to any less, that is considered a serious situation. Is the Cabinet of Ministers aware of this? Very clearly, yes. That matter is discussed regularly. Numerous plans are being drawn up to resolve the matter. Although we have not reached a point of concern, we are not safe from it either. We have sufficient reserves for the next 3 months, but it is a challenge to maintain.
ඊයේ දවසේ රුපියල් බිලියන 208ක්.
The daily economic reports indicated that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka had printed 208.5 billion rupees. Now the government has to pay a development bond of 178 million US dollars. Usually when you have to pay such a development bond, you can obtain that amount again from the market itself. As of now, we have no chance of entering the international market. They have completely closed their doors on us. No matter how much these people try to cover up the crisis, their failures are now out in the open. It is clear that everyone, including the Finance Minister, the State Minister of Finance, P.B. Jayasundara, who is a Secretary to the President, and the Finance Secretary, S.R. Artigala, has failed to manage the economy of the country. Now, please realize the situation at present and do the only thing that we can do at the moment. That is to restructure all the foreign debt that we have to pay back. If you do that, we will be able to delay the payment of interest by 36 months and delay the payment of installments by 48 months. Through this postponement, the government will be able to embark on the journey to save the people of this country. Instead, do not be arrogant and say that we are not ready to go to the international arena and we are not ready to go to the IMF. Do not say that you can do it. You cannot do it.
උද්දච්චකමට කියන්න එපා. අපි ජාත්‍යන්තරයට යන්න සූදානම් නැහැ. මූල්‍ය ආයතනයට යන්න සූදානම් නැහැ. අපිට පුළුවන් මේ වැඩේ කරන්න. ඔය කට්ටියට මේ වැඩේ තවදුරටත් කරන්න බෑ.
Amidst a conversation regarding the economic crisis, a public discourse has arisen over the ministerial appointment of Basil Rajapaksa.
To quote a political analyst, Basil Rajapaksa is a political intellect in Sri Lanka. The COVID-19 pandemic and the fuel price hike are grappling the country. His Excellency the President has identified the decision to stop the usage of chemical fertilizer vital in this day and age despite the inconvenience caused. That is a difficult decision to make. The SLPP decided to have a political intellectual such as Basil Rajapaksa in Parliament. It is a decision taken by the party.
මන්ත්‍රීවරු 113 දෙනෙක්ගෙන් අස්තන් යොදලා ජනාධිපතිතුමාට බාර දීලා දෙන කියන ලේඛනයක් මේ බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගේන්න ඕනේ කියලා. ඔබතුමත් ඒකට අස්තන් කළා තියෙනවා.
නෑ මම ඒකට
I don't need to sign it because Basil Rajapaksa is my uncle. I believe he carries a huge weight behind the scene. It is more convenient to work from inside rather than the outside.
එතකොට ඒක අමාත්‍ය ධුරයක් ලැබුණොත් තවත් ලේසි වෙයි.
He will definitely get it. I believe his ministerial position must be one where he can collaborate with other ministers. There are instances where the Ministry of Agriculture, Health and Highways must work together. There should be leadership when ministers are working together. The President is unable to carry all the weight. A lot can be done if he is given a ministry with the required authority to interfere into instances where it is difficult for the President to handle. We will wait until next week for an auspicious time.
මීට පෙර කිව්වේ මෙරට ආසියාවේ ආශ්චර්ය බවට පත් කර හැකි වන්නේ මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ.
Earlier, the belief was only Mahinda Rajapaksa was able to convert Sri Lanka into the wonder of Asia. Thereafter, that sentiment was discarded and some even said Mahinda isn't allowing Gotabaya to work towards the betterment of the nation. What is the sentiment now? Only Basil Rajapaksa can devise a strategy to guide our nation. Expressing such a sentiment leads one to believe Gotabaya and Mahinda have both failed. Basil Rajapaksa himself will in a few days admit a son of the Rajapaksa clan must be brought into the fold. The argument they build up insinuates this crisis can be resolved by a sole entity. What role has Basil Rajapaksa served in this government thus far? He didn't hurriedly arrive in the country to save it from its woes after leaving behind his family in Los Angeles, United States. He has been the mastermind of the government's moves since the day it ascended to power. In April 2020, Basil Rajapaksa was appointed the head of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Poverty Alleviation. If so, Basil Rajapaksa must be held responsible for the state of the economy and the woes of those in rural Sri Lanka at present. Thereafter, when COVID-19 struck, Basil Rajapaksa was appointed the head of the Presidential Task Force to direct, coordinate and monitor the delivery of continuous services for the sustenance of overall community life. When COVID-19 cases surged in the island, he was not even in the country. He was in Los Angeles. Were essential services carried out systematically? Were the basic needs of the people delivered? No. Then that too is unsuccessful. Subsequently, the Presidential Task Force on creating a green Sri Lanka with sustainable solutions to climate change was formed. The organic fertilizer matter came up through that. What has happened now? Farmers island-wide have taken to the streets. Basil Rajapaksa was not in the country either. Basil Rajapaksa is not an alien. He is not one who has travelled from another planet to address the crisis our country is facing at present. He is not a sorcerer. He was a key player of this government since the day it was established. Basil Rajapaksa, appearing at a political program, said they would bring down Ukrainian tourists to ascertain whether COVID-19 would spread through those tourists. Citizens of our country were thought of as lab rats. Was the experiment successful? Yes, it was. But how was it successful? Variants which did not exist in Sri Lanka began emerging. Basil Rajapaksa bears similar responsibility for this failure as much as Gotabaya Rajapaksa does. The truth is, all three of them are unsuccessful. Who are they? Mahinda, Basil and Gota. There are those who act behind these three as well. Who are they? Chamal Rajapaksa, Namal Rajapaksa, Shashindra Rajapaksa and Nipuna Ranawaka. This is an entire family. Is Basil in Parliament? Is he at home? Is he in Los Angeles? Is he spending time with his grandchildren? That does not matter to us. Why? Because they gave rise to this crisis and they are responsible for it worsening.
නේද ඒ කිසිවක් අපිට අදාළ නැහැ. මොකද මේ අර්බුදේ නිමවුම් කරුවන් සහ මේ අර්බුදය තීව්‍ර කරන්නන් ඔවුන් නිසා.
ඉල්ලයි. හැබැයි දිනන්න බෑ. ඉල්ලයි. ගමන ඉවරයි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය
SLFP will move on to the correct path and secure the power of the country once again. And this time we will all march forward together with a party similar to the SLFP to take charge of this country, and this party will be led by a leftist leader.
ඒක සමාන පක්ෂයක්. ඉතින් අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකාකාරයෝනේ.
තව කොච්චර කල් යනවද ඔබතුමා කියන පාට?
මේ සංචරණ සීමා ඉවරුනම අපි එළියට යනවා.
ඒක නායකත්වය ගන්නේ කොහොමද?
මම වෙන නායකත්වයට ඉන්නවා හුඟක් අය සුදුසුකම් තියන අය. ඉතින් දැනට මම නායකත්වය ගන්නවා.
Chandika madam is also there, but she is living overseas. I can't comment on it until she returns to the country. Let's talk about her when she returns. We are discussing this right now and we will soon put out the party symbol. How did the Podujana Peramuna form? Similarly, we will also build up this new movement. But we will not follow the policies of the Podujana Peramuna. We will follow the footsteps of the late SWRD Bandaranayaka's Panchamaha Balavege policy.
Bandaranayaka mahattage ප්‍රතිපත්ති.
Amidst the public discourse regarding internal conflicts within political parties, farmers of the country continue to suffer without sufficient fertilizer. The governing faction expressed several views regarding the protests which are being held over the fertilizer crisis.
Various media mafias are the ones that are carrying out these protests demanding chemical fertilizer. They are the ones provoking the public. I know because 2 such fertilizer factories are located in my village. They won't let organic fertilizer rise in the country. They are mafias.
ඒ මාෆියාවල් අද මේ ගත්ත තීරණයට විරුද්ධව කතා කරන
99.9% of the factions that oppose the decision to ban chemical fertilizer earn a lot in dollars through chemical fertilizer companies. We are ready to prove them in the future. However, we must make it clear that the decision taken will not be reversed.
බව තම පැහැදිලිව කිය යුතුයි.
එහෙනම් කවුද මේ උද්ඝෝෂණය කරන්නේ මුතුමා? දැන් මේ ගොවියෝ උද්ඝෝෂණය කරන්නේ.
නෑ ගොවියෝ නෙමෙයිනේ. ගොවියෝ නෙමෙයි.
No, it is not the farmers. More than us, farmers know more about organic cultivation.
දන්නෝ. මහා
We do not care whether these proposals are reverted or not. Plans must be underway to provide the fertilizer needed for the farmers to the market without any shortage. The All Ceylon Farmers Association protested in this manner in Pellavinna Valimada, demanding for fertilizer. These people have deceived the farmers during the election times and now they are living luxurious lives. They do not understand the plight of the farmers. Are they going to kill us like this? Our crops are destroyed, our children have no access to education, all our jewelries have been pawned. We have come to a point where the only option that is left for us is to commit suicide. Many protests demanding for fertilizer were held across the country today. Farmers who protested on the bunt of the Kalaweva carried out their protest opposite the statue of King Dhatusena near the Kadavara Devalaya and engaged in a satyagraha at the location.
A series of protests were staged in many parts of the island over the increase in fuel prices and the cost of living. A protest held at the Nelua town was organised by the Samagi Janabalawegaya. All actions taken by this government have failed. Therefore, we urge this government to step down immediately with your reputation intact. The government is attempting all this trickery because they don't have enough dollars within the country. If you don't have dollars, please inform it to the public. Don't hide these. Provide a practical solution to this issue. Always keep in mind, anyone who burdens the farmers of this country will never get away with it. You have two options: supply fertilizer or step down immediately. Members of the Alawa and Narambala Pradesh Sabha staged protests over the increase in fuel prices. When the government is acting in such a ridiculous manner, there is no way to prevent the public outcry. Many people are waiting for Basil to come and resolve this, but it does not concern us. Now, will the economy grow by 10% after this? It is just a waiting game for us now. The only matter that concerns us is, who are they going to bring forward once Basil starts to fail? Meanwhile, members of the Samagi Janabalawegaya in the Dompe Pradesh Sabha also staged a demonstration over the increase in fuel prices. Opposition members of the Arachikattua Pradesh Sabha staged another protest over the fuel price hike and also demanding solutions for the shortage of fertilizer. Members of the United National Party in the Diulopitiya Pradesh Sabha had also organized a protest.
A protest was staged to oppose the conduct of the chairman of the Ridhimalaya the Pradesh Sabha, who reportedly assaulted a group of protesters on Sunday. You only have these powers until you are in this position. You don't have the strength.
Everyone
here knows the history of our party. Our members rebelled to save this country while sacrificing their own lives. Who are you to us? Everyone, including the chairman of the Pradesh Sabha, must remember, all your might exists until you are in power. When you lose power, you will not even have a fly by your side. We urge the police I asked him if the chairman was arrested. Apparently, he has fled and cannot be found. On the 27th of this month, a group of locals, along with the former provincial councillor of the JVP, Sudat Balagalla, had held a silent protest to highlight the substandard condition of a road which runs from Pinnagolla to Veeragolla in Ridhimalaya. Our cameras captured how the chairman of the Ridhimalaya Pradesh Sabha, Nishanta Jal Sundara, arrived at the location and burdened the protesters.
a crack as well. Chimera Hasranga.
They came into power promising to discipline the country. They promised a lawful country. According to Gotabaya Rajapaksa, discipline is intimidating villagers using thugs. Gotabaya Rajapaksa must explain what he is going to do about these thugs politically. Gotabaya Rajapaksa must announce whether he condones the chairman of the Pradeshia Sabhas for threatening regular citizens with thugs.
In more local news, Minister Kehli Rambukwala said that Sri Lanka's military and the Criminal Investigations Department have conducted investigations with regard to the presence of camouflage-clad foreign personnel at the Chinese joint venture to dredge and clean up the ancient Tissa Maharama River. The cabinet spokesperson speaking to media today said that investigations have made it clear that there is no issue in wearing such attire in the country.
I would like to know as to why there have been no arrests made in connection to the project that was launched at the Hambantota Tissa Maharama River in violation of the Antiquities Act. Also, individuals clad in a uniform similar to that of the Chinese military were spotted there. Even our security forces have not yet made a statement on who these people are. Can people just roam around in military uniform? Although you speak highly about national security, you seem to have followed a very silent and cowardly approach to this incident.
I believe that the words silent and cowardly are not two words that should have been used, because you might see that our response is cowardly. But if the Antiquities Act has been violated the way you claim, there is a legal system in the country to take care of that. The situation is such that even if someone sneezes in Parliament, they will be taken to court. The Army and the Criminal Investigations Department have conducted investigations into this incident. There are even some security guards who are dressed in a uniform similar to that of the Navy. Certain groups in this country are trying to find something wrong with the government. This is simply a uniform that the employees of that company wears. If it is a registered security company, there is a list of uniforms that they can wear. If there is a difference, then they will have to present the design of the uniform, and when they present it and get approval for it, they can wear these uniforms.
රයිට් හොඳයි ඒ ඇඳුම වගේ එකක් අඳින්න පුළුවන් කියලා CID එකත් ඒ වගේම යුද හමුදා බුද්ධ අංශයක් ගන්නලා තියෙනවා පැහැදිලි. අවසන් වශයෙන් මේ පුද්ගලයෝ චීන යුද හමුදාවට සම්බන්ධ පුද්ගලයින්ද කියලා දැනගන්න කැමතියි. අපි දන්න තරමට
As far as we know, they are not members of the military. That is just an overall. I have even seen employees at garages wear these kind of overalls. These uniforms are worn at high-end garages as well. Go check as to if this too is a military kit or not. I will let you know about them as well. There are a few garages like that.
The China-Sri Lanka joint venture that has been set up to dredge and clean up the Tissa Maharame River has led to much controversy over the past few days, and it also figured very heavily today during the cabinet media briefing. A journalist questioned Minister Kehli Rambukwala as to why no arrests have been made as yet on the people who were donning military attire or fatigues that were similar to a military uniform, particularly those worn by soldiers in the China Liberation Army. However, Minister Kehli Rambukwala seemed a bit disgruntled about the particular comment made by the journalist, asking why the government was non-committal or tight-lipped on this situation, and he said that the CID and the Sri Lanka Army had carried out an extensive probe and have found no fault in these particular people wearing such uniforms or overalls of that nature. He also said it is not apt to say that the government is maintaining a non-committal stance or being tight-lipped on this situation. He also went on to say that there is no impediment for people to wear such overalls, moreover saying that he has also witnessed himself in certain garages people wearing overalls of this nature. But let me draw your attention to what an overall would ideally look like. This are Google searches that we have found for workshop overalls, and this does not in any way look like an overall or military uniform worn by a soldier of a particular country. These are overalls that would be worn by people who are working at garages and so on. But Minister Keheliya Rabukwella seems to have seen something else that we and you and I have failed to see. Moreover, when Minister Keheliya Rabukwella was questioned as to why these people or these foreign nationals were being treated in a preferential manner or in a selective manner, Keheliya Rabukwella went on to note that there was no such preferential treatment, and the CID has confirmed wearing such military fatigues or fatigues that are similar to that of a military uniform does not impede the law in any way. However, we remember in the past there were several arrests made on civilians who were wearing clothes, not even overalls, but clothes that were similar to those of a military attire, even at times a camouflage design. Let me now draw your attention to the military fatigues or the uniforms that the people at the Tissamaharame Vävä were wearing. As you can clearly see, the people who are wearing these uniforms are very similar to that of a soldier at the China People's Liberation Army, and these fatigues have been covered in Velcro, which would ideally cover a name tag or symbols of a particular army. Because we know that there is a ban on military uniforms or camouflage designed clothes being worn by civilians, that is you and I in this country. So we question as to whether there are preferential treatments being going on to certain section of people while civilians in Sri Lanka are being treated differently.
Dollars in just 17 years.
Finally, in your sports news, the first of the 3-match ODI series between Sri Lanka and England is currently underway at the Riverside Stadium. After England captain Eoin Morgan won the toss and decided to bowl first, Sri Lanka were bundled out for 185 runs in 42 overs.